All right, team, this is our last video in the lesson series of habit forming, and this is a powerful one, I think, anyway, because the last two videos we just talked about habits, we talked about cues, and to be honest, I could have done another 3 videos around habits, but let's not make it too confusing. Now I want to give you something that's really practical, that's really applicable, and this is around morning, afternoon routines, routines before, in between tasks, going in and out of work meetings, etc. So this is my switch off and switch on routines in general. So I try and clear tension, and this work comes from Brendan Burchard's work. So I know I haven't referenced his book in this week in particular because most of the stuff for the habits wasn't, but just this piece, the clearing tension, setting intention, before school, before work, before whatever the thing is that you're going to, before a sporting match, and then before going home and so on. So how this works as a real basic one, let's just say we're at work, or if you're a kid, you're at school, and you're going from school to home, on the way to home, even if it's sitting in your driveway, so, you're trying to clear the tension of whatever's happened through the day. Now, I'm not saying anything bad might have happened, but you're just trying to get rid of whatever might have happened through the day and just let that go. So we're talking about a physical tension, but also a mental tension, and probably more so mental. So I clear the tension, and I do that by listening to a bit of music or a good podcast or just something little that kind of fires me up. And then I set my intention. What's my intention when I walk through those front doors of home? My intention is for the next hour to be fully present for the people around me, or I won't talk about my day until I've asked everyone about theirs, or set that intention. And then I do the same in reverse. So when we're going to work, going to school, going to a sporting match, whatever the thing is that we're going into, we clear the tension that we might have from home, and we set our intention of going to work. So I'll go more in depth around these. So let's start with a morning routine. And this is, for me, what I think is a good morning routine. Again, find your own truth in all of this. 20 minutes before the world wakes up. So 20 minutes before the world wakes up. So that means before I turn on my phone and social media and emails and you start responding to the world, I go through this little thing here. Motivation. I read 1 or 2 pages of something that motivates me. It could be a poem, a passage, something that interests me. I watch a YouTube video, or I listen to an audio piece, something very short and sharp that just kind of picks me up. And I've got a few go-tos that I use in the video series. Then I'll do something with movement. Now, this isn't exercise. So if you exercise in the morning, that's separate to this. You think about a cat or any animal when they wake up, they stretch and they kind of move themselves around before they start to move. It's kind of like that. What I do is I get on YouTube, just because YouTube's on my TV, and I just look for a 5-minute movement flow or yoga flow. I'm not someone who's done yoga, but look for something like that, a 5-minute routine, and it'll just be, they're free. And it's just moving my body for 5 minutes in really basic movements just to get the blood flowing. Then hydration. I'm currently trying to knock over, I've got a 500 ml water bottle that I carry everywhere, like a reusable one. And my goal is to drink 4 of those in a day as a minimum. That's my minimum. I'll try and actually get 6 in, but 4 is my minimum. So I'll try and drink one of those, a whole 500 mils in the morning in that first 20 minutes. And then whatever time I've got left of that 20 minutes, which is only about 5 or so minutes because all that other stuff's taken 12 to 15, I just sit and go through my plan. What's going on for today? What have I got on? What's important? Meetings, all that sort of stuff. So that's 20 minutes. But I actually prefer it to be 60 minutes if I can before I turn any of that stuff on and start doing actual work. At work, at school, at an event, a sporting event, or whatever the case may be, I clear my tension before I walk in. I set my intention. For me, these are my main intentions. Be responsible for the energy that I bring in. So wherever I'm going into a coffee shop, believe it or not, these are all kind of subconscious habits for me now. But, going into a meeting, sitting down and answering emails, you might get a nasty email from someone. Instead of just firing straight up, I always think, all right, what energy do I need to bring to this? And then I work back from that. I set my intentions for the day. So what is it that I want to be? How do I want to show up? And then I also just ask myself, who do I want to impact? My staff, my clients, someone that I reach out to, who is it that I'm trying to impact? And these are things that I think if you ask yourselves these questions on a daily basis, you would have a more positive flow than if you walked in ready for, oh, what's going to get thrown at me today? Or bloody Joe, I'm sure he hasn't got his shit together, and that sort of stuff, if that makes sense. But if you think to yourself, be responsible for the energy that I bring, what are my intentions for the day? What do I intend to get done? How do I intend to show up? And who will I impact today? All of a sudden, as you can see, you're starting the day on a positive note. My at-home ritual. So now I'm talking about getting back home. I clear tension, set intention. I've heard a really good theory around this where if you're sitting in your driveway, whether you've caught public transport or you've driven home, whatever, but say you get to your house and you feel like you've had a really rough day and you haven't cleared the tension from the day, go for a walk around the block, even 2 laps until you've cleared the tension. Set the intention. So for me, it's no phone, no laptop, no work for a 1 hour minimum. For 1 hour, I just want to focus on whoever's present in my home. And believe it or not, that's my cat. That's my daughter Sammy that lives with me. Or if there's anyone in my home, that's what I'm thinking about. It could be your partner, it could be your mum or dad. You just want to interact with them for a whole hour before I touch anything and go back to work. Otherwise, all you've done is left work or left school, and then you've traveled all the way home, and then you've gone straight back to school or back to work. And so it's about clearing that tension, setting that intention. Then I try and think about what deep work could I do tonight if I am going to work? So after that hour minimum, say I open up my laptop, I try and do 60 minutes of deep work. This comes from the theory of what we call chopping wood. And the chopping wood theory, if you haven't heard the story, and I don't know if it's true story or not, but it's an old wood chopper who was unbeaten for years. And he's an older guy, but he's big and strong and been doing it for years. His technique's sweet, everything. But obviously he's not as physical as the young guns. There's a couple of young bucks come in and they think, we're gonna beat him. This is our year. We're gonna do everything we can to beat him. And they go at it. And this is over a whole day that this thing is done. And for the first 2 or 3 hours, they are just carving up, boom, 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 just chopping away. They each have their own tents, and they go into their tents whenever they need a break. They can have a massage, they can have a feed, they can just sit down and relax. This guy, the older guy, every 45 minutes, he would stop work and he'd go into his tent and he'd stay in there for 15 minutes and then he'd come back out and then he'd go back to work. Over 3 or 4 hours, the young guns were a mile ahead of him. They didn't take any breaks because they just wanted to stay boom, boom, boom. We want to stay in front. We're not going to let this old bloke catch up. But then over the second half of the day, over the next 4 or 5 hours, they slowly slipped back and slowly started to struggle. The fatigue started to set in. And the old guy just religiously took his 15-minute breaks. At the end, he pipped him. Only just, but he pipped him. And the young gun said, how did you do it? And what were you doing when you went into the tent? You were taking so many breaks. And he said, what I was doing was sharpening my axe. So he was focusing on sharpening the tool that was going to provide the work, whereas they were just focusing on muscling their way through it. What that means to me is everything that you do that teaches you to be a better version of you, you are the axe. I view that as sharpening the axe so that you can achieve whatever it is you want to achieve as an athlete, as a business owner, as a partner, as a parent, as whatever it is that you want to be. Sharpen the axe. That's what chopping the wood's about. And I try and get 60 minutes of deep work in every day. And I don't always get it, but that's my goal. That's my intention. 60 minutes before bed, I try and turn the phone off, the laptop off, lights down. If I'm going to watch TV, get yourself some blue blockers. I don't really watch TV. I'll try the blue blockers. I don't mind them. So blue blockers, if you don't know, just Google them. But they're glasses that filter out the blue light, which activates our brain a little bit more. But truthfully, if you can turn all that stuff off, you're going to allow your brain to switch off and hit its natural circadian rhythms. 20 minutes before bed, I sit down and just look at my plan for the next day. What's my important stuff tomorrow? What are the big ticket items? Are there important meetings? Are there important things that I need to get done? I think a little bit about gratitude, 1 to 3 things that I'm grateful for. Don't surface level this stuff. Like, don't you ever dare go, I'm just happy to be breathing and alive. And, let's just assume that we're happy to be alive. Let's just make an assumption that we're happy to be alive. What are you truly grateful for? Look for it. You might have a tough day and it might be really hard to find something that day. So you've got to dig deep. What is something that I'm absolutely grateful for today? There are so many psychological, scientifically backed studies that show what gratitude does for our brain. So, you just can't discount it. And then I'll try and think of up to 3 things that went well today, even in a tough day. What are some things that went well? Say the whole something at work just really exploded, clients upset, all these things happen. And then you look around, you go, well, actually, a couple of the staff members really stepped up. Now, we didn't get the result we wanted still. Everyone was unhappy. It was a really tough day. Had to eat some humble pie talking to clients. But, Joe and Sally really stepped up. They thought, it could be that. Or it could be that even when I felt under attack and when I felt really stressed, I managed to keep myself calm, didn't say anything that I didn't that I didn't want to say, I didn't upset anyone, or whatever. You just got to think about what are some things that went well today, because there will be things that went well. If you can do this 20-minute routine before you go to bed, you will sleep better, because when you go to bed and you haven't resolved issues in your mind, and we've all had this experience, I'm sure, you just toss and turn and toss and turn because you're not getting that stuff out of your head. So those are some routines, morning routines, going in and out of work routines. Cal Newport even talks about routines before you open up emails and you say, all right, for the next 40 minutes, I'm just doing emails. Clear tension, set intention. Then close the emails down, go for a walk around the office, talk to people, 10-minute break, grab a cup of coffee, whatever the case may be, so that you're now clearing the tension before you then go on to the next thing, which could be a meeting. What's my intention going into this meeting? So you've cleared the tension from the emails going into the meeting, or cleared the tension from the emails, and I'm writing a proposal, or I'm putting in some sort of application that requires an extra amount of thought, whatever the case may be. What we often do is we bounce from task to task, and we slowly over time build up this intense amount of tension. And then that tension gets dragged from one position to the other, from home to work, from one email to the next meeting, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And you just come home feeling absolutely frazzled. And then you take it out sometimes on people closer to you or yourself. And so the case goes on. So there's real power to this stuff. Give it a go.